Yesterday marked the year of a year since the 2016 presidential election went off, and what was little reported was that it was after midnight that it was actually confirmed that Trump had won. Now, as the channels and various news places were checking things out, and how you doing, Winter Fresh, there was a brief showing of Clinton's campaign headquarters, where there were various individuals tearing up and having boohoo fest. Now, before someone accuses me of a premature, what do you call it, a very belated version of cyberbullying, let me say this. The reaction they had inside was probably very similar to the reaction I had inside when Sanders lost the Democratic primary. The difference was that I was at no point driven to tears or some public showing of distaste. Um, was it those morons screaming at the sky? No, that was for yesterday's anniversary of the election. I'm referring to the anniversary of November 9th, the day after the election. That's when we found out Trump had won, and they started showing all those Clinton supporters crying and tearing up at the headquarters. That's what I'm referring to. The anniversary of that. So November 8th was election day, but November 9th was Crybaby Day. And again, if you were bothered by her losing, that's one thing. But to go, and it's settled around a couple of ideas. I pay no. I don't know what that word is. You'll have to give me the elaboration of that, reluctant dragon. But their views on her were probably the same views I had on Sanders. I believed that he was the best person qualified out of any of the candidates. And when he lost, I was disappointed, but I did not shed a tear. I did not get depressed. I had a person I know that told me they had sat up the entire day after the election, or the entire day of November 9th, laying in bed, just disturbed over Trump's win. How you doing, Mr. Harvey? So I was amused by it, and it kind of goes back to the idea of we take things so seriously that just shouldn't be taken seriously. See, even if Sanders lost, and even if he runs again and loses again, I know the ideology that he has will at some point or another make it out. Really, it's not the person losing, but it's the ideas that you feel are being lost. And that's kind of what was the fundamental disconnect I had with Clinton supporters. I never was told about a set of policies or ideas that she had that made them flock to her. It was just, hey, different gender, different gender, different gender. And that was what was so gratifying about seeing that idea of you can win by just being the token minority or gender, or some kind of physical trait. Just seeing that lopsided was very much satisfying. Yeah, Reluctant Dragons over there cracking some jokes. That's not the same one. I think that's fairly apparent. Um, I couldn't. I just knew that when we had this anniversary, I had to address it because people are ignoring it. They keep thinking that somehow um, we're actually, that November 8th was the technical, even though that was the anniversary of the elections, ballots being cast. The day afterward was the actual voting period, just the results, the fruition of the votes and of the campaign. And it was quite a sight to see, and I'm sure everyone in here probably remembers it. I was very much amused by that sight, because it shows when you get so attached to a person you've never met before, that when they lose an election, something they can run for again, that you just start crying and tearing up. That's not necessary. And it goes back to the idea of, are these people bothered because the views she had are not going to be expressed, or are they upset that they didn't get what she is into the White House, which was the first female, which again females can run later on and are going to run in the next election anyway. Um, that's a force. I don't know what Fresh is referring to. He'll have to clarify for me. So that was the crux of what I took away from their frustration, and it kind of irritated me because I don't necessarily enjoy the sight of other people being saddened. I'm but my viewpoints came from the perspective of how much are you going to be, because think about this, they're crying over a person they've never met before. They have I meant that crying is overreacting. That, yeah, Fresh. But it also it goes back to show you that people take things so seriously that others don't. Let's call it what it is. If Clinton had won, we'd still be in Afghanistan. We'd still have people saying that all the various issues still exist, and we'd still just, I don't see where anything would have changed under her. The corporate system still would be in place. There's really nothing that I can tell other than maybe some of the anti-LGBT stuff, which her record on that isn't even that good because she only came out in favor of same-sex marriage about 4 years ago. So I have a hard time believing she's in favor of much of anything. She's kind of like a watered down version of Romney, where they'll say they're one way and then people can pull up clips of them saying something else. The consistency just isn't there. There's never a real choice. Pretty much Black Butterfly. Actually, no, I wouldn't. So, why don't you run for... I'm not old enough. I don't know how many times I have to say I'm 19 and how many times people can't just look up the qualifications. You have to be 35. Anyways, let me respond to Black Butterfly. I don't know how true that is, because the way it works is that most of the popular positions that people might have usually don't get implemented due to the fact that a number of these politicians, whether running for president or senator or governor, take money in backroom deals, and they keep things in place that screw over the common man, while whomever is in the back of let me read this. Whomever is in the back just kind of gets the benefit of it. I think it was all part believing conspiracy behind electoral vote. Yeah. And that's also funny. People talking about getting rid of the electoral college. One, it wasn't the first time that happened where the person with the popular vote won, or lost rather. That's happened 5 times and twice in this century alone. And it just wasn't that big of a deal to me, because the logical thing at that point is, okay, well, if we get rid of the electoral college, states like Iowa and Vermont and Wyoming don't matter anymore if California votes entirely for one person like they always do, or Texas or New York. Any of those larger states, if they just vote overwhelmingly for one person, they just usurp all the other ones. Supposedly, yeah, I don't believe that, Fresh. That's nonsense. Not you necessarily, but that eat greens and shit and chitterlings together. What else is here? Trying to see if someone said something I saw and just forgot about. Man, where'd it go? Oh, well, I can't find it. I'll just have to live with the mystery. There's something else I was thinking about. That's what I hate about trying to answer questions in the chat room or respond to things in there, and then also talk about some particular form of discussion, because you become so preoccupied with trying to answer people there, you forget about what your point was. But yeah, the Electoral College actually kind of reminds me of this teacher I had about a few years ago. He would give tests, and what people started figuring out was that if you just answer out of the 11 questions 5 of them matter more than the others, you can pass the test without answering the other stuff. You can pass it with a decent grade. So what they would start doing was answering the 5 questions correctly, and maybe trying one of the other ones of those bottom 6 and getting a passing grade with those, to where he actually had to remake all of his tests from that point onward. That's kind of what the Electoral College, if it was gone, what we would have. People would just go to California and Texas and New York and Illinois and Florida and ignore, Wyoming and Vermont and Alaska. They just would completely neglect them because they would figure their votes don't matter. Which they wouldn't if there was no Electoral College, because there's more people in California than Vermont, Wyoming, and Delaware combined. So that's not too far of a stretch of the imagination. Yeah. See what else. Someone says LOL. Fresh is over there giggling. Shaggy will win. Yeah. So the alien is I don't believe. Oh, here we go with this. I like how there's 3 different discussions going on at once. You have some super talk, then you have conspiracy theories, then what's this other one? The one guy that is talking about all of the women that he's been in love with at one point or another. It's really it's an amusing gathering. So what I'm likely to do is give another 2-3 minutes and then go and either start up another stream or get on some other topic. There's quite a number of things to go and discuss. And Master Shock Value is telling us what he'll be doing for this weekend and for the next 5 or 6 afterward. But yeah, what this election cycle and all of the fallout from it showed was people have this thing in their mind. Self into 3. This thing in their mind where they have a viewpoint of, if this person doesn't win, it's the end of everything. The world is coming to an end. This is the conclusion. These are our last days. And that's truly what you can kind of see reflected. Go back and watch the footage of the Clinton supporters. Go watch what's her name? Miley. Yeah, go watch her tear up. The video reaction of her giving the waterworks. That's the kind of mentality we have, that it's not the person going down that is it's not rather the viewpoints going down. That, yeah, what other Miley would I be talking about? Reluctant Dragon. Some people, by the way, that's another thing. That's one of my I don't want to say pet peeves, but there's a running theme where I'll say someone's name, and it will be a name that's only associated with that person, and then the person will ask you, "Are you talking about that person?" So, for example, if I say Obama, you know who I'm talking about. If I say Reagan, you know who I'm talking about. If I say Nixon, you know who I'm talking about. If I say Truman, you know who I'm talking about. No, those people don't exist. Reluctant Dragon, you're not gonna coerce me into believing fables. It'd be different if I said Jackson. You don't know if I'm talking about Andrew Jackson or Michael Jackson or Jesse Jackson or Janet Jackson. But that's another little annoyance that I have. But it's not that big a deal. But it's based around the idea of there are names that are associated with a person, and people still will ask you to say the full name. I don't know. It's amusing, and it's amusing in one sense, and kind of not annoying, but it's one of those things where, again, do I really have to say who I'm talking about, or would you really not know who I'm talking about if I mention one of those names where only a president has that, or only someone of great notoriety has it? So just use Master Shock Value, and everyone else is going on some tangent about various subjects. I mean, this is a very wide-ranging discussion in this chat room. That's more interesting than the actual the stream. So I'll probably have something else up. Yeah, I agree, Harvey. And I think that that's another thing that bothers me. People still have this misconception that I'm in favor of one of the two. If I criticize something Trump does, I'll get called a Clinton supporter that's still bitter about the election. If I rebuke something Clinton said or did or talk bad about her, they'll assume I'm a Trump supporter. There's no being in the middle on any of this. I'm not in favor of either one of them. And that's mainly because many of their positions are just similar. The corporate greedy dark money version of the U.S. that we currently live in, it would have stayed continuously whether or not Clinton or Trump won. So I am getting annoyed by that because I'm not very much into the idea of, okay, well, now we'll just stay with one position. Uh, yeah, exactly. Both were torn, having to pick a side. Yeah, I didn't support either one of them at any point during the actual election cycle. I favored Cruz over Trump and Sanders over Clinton, and then when the general election came, I didn't vote for either one of them. None of them were really good. So again, I'll have something else up. I just wanted to point out the anniversary. It'll either be in the next maybe hour, couple of minutes, tomorrow at the latest. We'll find out. So, all thieves and murderers. So no, I did vote for the Libertarian Johnson. So yeah, we'll go over something else sooner than later.